We know that very well in America. You cannot win a democratic mandate by censoring your opponents or putting them in jail, whether that's the leader of the opposition, a humble Christian praying in her own home, or a journalist trying to report the news. Nor can you win one
than this administration.
Well, I heard his speech, and I tell you, you're talking about JD's speech, right?
Yes, sir.
I heard his speech, and he talked about freedom of speech, and I think it's true in Europe. It's losing. They're losing their wonderful right of freedom.
It's a court case. I'm not a criminal offender. I'm a civil offender, so I shouldn't even be in it. I'm not a criminal offender, so I get the 50% off. They get 60. I think some of them get 70 from January. But that's only a difference of a month off. But that's a big difference when someone sits on social.
Keir Starmer probably thought his speech in Munich would be a defining moment, a chance to prove he's a strong leader ready to restore Britain's global standing. But instead of commanding respect, he got something else, something embarrassing. Right there, in front of world leaders, the US Vice President delivered a response that left Starmer completely exposed. It wasn't just a disagreement, it was a brutal reality check.
And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest. The moment they...
How did this happen? Why did Keir Starmer walk into this international event believing he was in control, only to be left scrambling? And what does this tell us about how the world views him as the UK's leader? This wasn't just a bad speech, it was a warning sign. A sign that Britain under Starmer is losing influence, that his leadership isn't as strong as he claims, and that even close allies are starting to question his direction. At the Munich conference, Starmer aimed to position Britain as a global force. He spoke of democracy, alliances, and security. His message was confident, but the reality tells a different story. Words are easy, actions matter. While he painted a picture of a strong Britain, his leadership at home is under scrutiny. Many question if he can truly deliver on his promises. He wanted to appear as a unifier, someone who could repair UK-Europe relations after Brexit. But can he? When Britain itself faces economic uncertainty, social division, and increasing restrictions on free speech, how convincing is his vision? Then came the moment he likely dreaded, the response from the US Vice President. Instead of a diplomatic nod, Starmer received a public rebuke. His message didn't land. Instead of looking like a strong leader, he appeared out of touch, desperately holding on to an image that no longer fits reality. The Vice President didn't just disagree, they exposed the gap between Starmer's words and Britain's actual standing. This wasn't a minor policy debate, it was a direct contradiction that shattered his carefully crafted narrative. Some diplomats exchanged glances, others took notes. The bluntness of the response left the room silent. This wasn't just awkward, it was humiliating. When one of your closest allies questions your credibility on a global stage, it's not just an embarrassment, it's a blow to your nation's standing. Starmer tried to brush it off, but the damage was done. If the US challenged him this openly, what are they saying behind closed doors? Starmer's big moment on the global stage turned into a disaster. He looked weak and out of his depth. His attempt to showcase strength backfired, exposing his lack of leadership. He claims to champion democracy, yet his government cracks down on free speech. People have been arrested for praying in public, social media users face police raids, and censorship laws silence dissent, even in private homes. Religious expression is under threat, with heavy fines for influencing decisions near abortion clinics. In Scotland, even praying at home in certain zones could be illegal, with neighbors urged to report thought crimes. Suppressing speech at this level sets a dangerous precedent, eroding fundamental rights. This isn't just a domestic issue, it's a diplomatic crisis. Britain, once a beacon of free thought, now resembles a surveillance state. When a nation punishes citizens for their beliefs, it loses moral authority. Allies now question if Britain is still a serious global player. World leaders who once viewed the UK as a defender of democracy now see it embracing authoritarian tactics. The UK's influence is fading. The US doubts Starmer's leadership, and European leaders find him indecisive. His rushed green policies are costing jobs, and his stance on censorship raises concerns abroad. Investors are wary, and Britain's status as a business hub is at risk. Businesses fear overregulation while economic uncertainty grows. If Britain can't offer stability, it will lose its global standing. Starmer's Munich speech was meant to project strength but only highlighted Britain's decline. His weak response to a U.S. vice president's rebuke made things worse. Critics slammed him for lacking backbone, and public opinion turned further against him. The media pounced, with commentators noting Britain's diminished role on the world stage. Some even compared him to past leaders who struggled under international pressure. Instead of leaving Munich as a respected leader, he walked away looking weak. His credibility is in tatters, and allies are looking elsewhere for strong leadership. If he can't reverse this perception soon, Britain risks being sidelined in global affairs for years to come. Recovering from this won't be easy.